What up guys, Supermetal983 here bringing us another album review, and this is another one that I've been sent to from the Artisan Era, and this is the album that I originally contacted them with in the basis of which to do a review on, and that's when they hooked us up with the Augury album to review, and then another one which will be coming very, very soon. But the album in question, as you can read below, is the new Inferi album entitled Revenant, and this is going to be released, as I said, by the Artisan Era. I believe it's already out now, April 20th, I believe. Oh no, sorry, April 21st, my bad. But, yeah, we're here to do a review of it, so here we go. Obviously, this is the band's fourth full-length album. Previous albums, Divinity and War, which I'm not too familiar with, never really listened to it, so can't really say much about that one. And then you've got their second album, or sophomore album, or whatever people want to pronounce it as, The End of an Era, which I only really discovered just before this album came out. Like, I decided, you know what, I'm going to listen to that one, because I'd heard some really good things from friends of mine on YouTube and stuff, that it was a really solid album, and it is a really solid album. In fact, I think that one's personally my favourite of their entire discography so far, like the one that I think I make a stronger connection to. I think it's got a lot more grit to it, and a bit more, you could say in essence, ferocity behind it. That's just my personal opinion. And then my introduction to the band was through their last album called The Path of Apotheosis. I'm no good at pronunciation, guys, as you know. But, yeah, I got discovered through that album, and that album, when I first heard it, blew me the fuck away. I was a massive fan of A Loathing Requiem, and found out that Malcolm was a part of Inferi as well, and so that made us go and check out Inferi. So that's how I got introduced to the band. And obviously they announced their new album, Revenant, and I was like, immediately on board. I was like, yep, this is going to be a sick album. So I contacted the Artisan Era about potentials to review, and here we are today. Now, as I said before, they have a bit of a ferocious sort of style to their sound. They play a very melodic, technical style of death metal, kind of what you would find along the lines of Alterbeast, for example. If you're a fan of Alterbeast, you'll be familiar with Inferi, as they've done a USA tour, or two USA. I know they've got an upcoming one with Rivers of Nile, which also, if you're a fan of like the first two Rivers of Nile albums, then you'll find something to like about Inferi, in my personal opinion. But a big band that I would say, if you're a fan of, that you need to check out this band, is the Black Dahlia Murder. The Black Dahlia Murder, I can see, are a massive influence, especially in the vocals department, if you ask me. But it's not really as in like the thrashy kind of at the gates kind of style melodic death metal of Black Dahlia Murder. It's more technical, a lot more faster. So it's kind of like Black Dahlia Murder if it was written at the speed of Flesh God Apocalypse. That not so much King, but the Labyrinth and Agony and Oracles. If you want that sort of speed and tenacity with Flesh God Apocalypse, but would like Black Dahlia Murder style, then this is the perfect kind of band for you, I'd say, personally. But this album, to me, is an incredible album. It's a great follow-up to The Path of Apotheosis. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that again, but anyway, their last album. I feel like this album is a great continuation and a great adaptation and growth of the band themselves. There's a lot more elements to add to this album. Obviously, as I said, there's the faster kind of melodic death metal technical kind of riffs that you would expect on the likes of Alterbeast, for example. But there's a lot of things that really dwell into the likes of Ritual by the Black Dahlia Murder, with those whole symphonic elements being added to this album that really create more atmosphere and create a bit more of a kind of blackened feel to this album. And indeed, the Inferi sound has a bit of a twinge of black metal and black and death metal kind of influence in there. Just a little bit of strange, just to give it that little more atmosphere, that little bit more ambience, just to give it that darker, more sinister kind of feel to it. And this album definitely replicates that in a really unique way, if you ask me. And I have to say, the musicianship on this album is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of, as I said, tight melodic style riffs in there that you really need to be awake to actually feel and it grabs your attention. So if you want something to like rip your face off with massive amounts of well thought musicianship, then this is definitely an album for you, I'd say, and especially this album, because I think it offers that a lot of depth and a lot of I know I say that a lot in my reviews, but it does offer a lot of depth in the musicianship, and the song structure and the songwriting's definitely up there as being one of the best that I've heard so far this year, with the whole instrumentations and the really attention to detail on this album. There's a lot of attention to detail on this album that I really particularly enjoyed, and one thing that encapsulated us when listening to this album, if you ask me. Production wise, it's a very high end production, but it still has this kind of raw, nasty kind of attack going for kind of excuse me, kind of what the kind of vibes I get from the production value is kind of like Everblack by the Black Dahlia Murder, where the melodic parts are there, but they sound quite clean and melodic, obviously, but they still sound raw, catchy, and still you can hear them in the back, but they still create this like slight grit behind it, and also to an extent it's kind of like Nightbringers in essence, if you ask me. But moving on from that, one of my favourite parts of the production is the bass tone on this. Very, very barky, kind of clanky in an essence bass tone, cuts through the mix very, very finely. It sounds like, reminds us a lot of Havoc's Conformicide, the way that bass sung through and just cut through the mix like a knife through butter. That's the best way it sounds, but it still barks at you. It literally cuts through the mix like a little bark from a like bulldog or a staffy or something like that. Just oh, it's so it sends chills down your spine and makes your hair stand on end. Bass tone is definitely my favourite part of the production. There's some excessively amazing lead work on this album, I have to say, that sings very very well endowed into the mix. It kind of reminds us a lot of Decrepit Birth in an essence, because I think Decrepit Birth has the sort of Inferi sort of attack going for it, where it's got that those melodies over the swords that really sing. Like a guitar solo is actually meant to sing like a voice, and on this album they sing really loud and proud. The bends, the sweeps, the sweeps sound so clean, so majestic. It literally sounds so majestic when you hear the sweeps on this album. But it's a very monolithic sound to it, and I think obviously the drums are fast, intense, pound, just blast beats, and they're just so tight, just excuse me, absolutely relentless drumming on this album. Vocally, as I said before, I'm going to take a drink with, let's see. Oh, I'm all out. But the vocals definitely take a bit more of a Black Dahlia Murder kind of feel, and definitely in front of Alterbeast Black Dahlia Murder, you'll find something like, and especially, I'd say a bit of Decrepit Birth vocals in there as well. But it's very high essenced vocals, very in the higher range of things, like as if blackened, sort of blackmail kind of carcassy kind of feel to it, and then some monstrous lows over the top that really go gut wrenching and just emanated from the bowels, and it sounds absolutely devastating if you ask me. And it's a great combination of all this, from the symphonic elements to the superb musicianship to the raw but clean production. I know that sounds a bit odd, but that's the way I see it. And then on top of that, obviously, really strong musicianship, and everything that I've said just adds up to make this really unique package that is Inferi's Revenant. You also get some guest vocals on this album on track 4, which is Through the Depths, from James Malone, I believe his name is, of Arsis, very well known name in this sort of style. If you're a fan of Arsis as well, you'll find something to like about these guys. Definitely a big influence if you ask me. But yeah, obviously signature voice in there, and then obviously we've talked about him. He's on this album, Trevor Strnad on the from the Black Dahlia Murder on the last tour, Behold the Bearer of Light, the closing track, and it's like it's built up to that moment where it's like Come on, where is he? Where is he? He has to feature on this album. And then he's there right there, and you just like, there's me lad. You know, that's the way you've got, when it comes to that track, you're just like, yep, he's there. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's a very northeast scene to do, but, oh well. Excuse me. Particular favourite songs of mine are Through the Depths. That's definitely one of my favourite tracks. Thy Menacing Gaze, really, really awesome track. My camera's going out of focus again. I kind of need to update it a little bit, like. But anyway, Through the Depths, Thy Menacing Gaze, and I'd have to say, Enraged and Drowning Sullen. That is definitely another track that I particularly enjoyed on this album. It's around an hour long, so it's quite a long, 56 minutes. It's quite a lengthy record, but for the respect that I have for this release is bar none. This is an exquisite release. Great songwriting, great musicianship, and a lot of elements coming into one to create a nice, amazing unit of symphonics, melodicness, aggression, and blast beats galore. That's the way I can best describe this album personally. For an overall score though, I'm going to give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. A very, very solid release, and definitely something that I'm going to pick up on CD in the upcoming future. But yeah, I've got a few more CD reviews and album reviews coming very soon. I'm just waiting for a few things to come in, and I've also got a Super Met recommendations in the pipeline, number 7 I believe the next one. So yeah, I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.